Hello, today we are going to be talking about evaluating trig functions without a calculator. Now this is a natural extension of the skills we gained in the previous videos on coterminal angles and reference angles. The only other information that we are going to need in order to be able to do this successfully is listed on the screen for you right now. Now the three angles that we have on the left, these are the most common types of angles that you are going to see. We are going to use these as reference angles, and it is going to pay for us to know what the sine, cosine, and tangent of each of these angles are. We are also going to want to know about the sign of the different trig functions in the different quadrants, whether they are positive or negative. If you need to learn about this, then you might want to learn a little bit about the unit circle in general. Now, we are missing some information in the bottom right of that second table there. I will help you out. In the fourth quadrant, tangent is negative. So we are going to use both of these things without actually looking at them, so I recommend writing them down or just going back to look at them again later on. Let us take a look at some examples. Now, as previously stated, we are going to have to evaluate these trig functions without a calculator. Our first example here is sine of 300 degrees. Now, we likely do not know too much about 300 degrees, so it would pay for us to find a reference angle to that. So, since we start off in quadrant 4, our rule is going to be 360 minus our angle, and when we do that, we get 60 degrees. This implies to us that the sine of 300 is going to be about the same as the sine of 60, just positive or negative. We are not sure. In order to figure out which one, we are going to look at which quadrant we are in. In quadrant 4, sine is negative, so that means that the sine of 300 degrees is equal to negative square root of 3 over 2. Here in our second example, we have cosine of 600 degrees. Since this angle does not exist within our range of 0 to 360, we must find a coterminal angle that does. So when I take 360 away from 600, I'm going to get 240. This angle lies within the third quadrant, so that means that to find the reference angle, I'm going to do my angle minus 180. When I do this, I'm going to have 240 minus 180. This gives me 60 degrees. Once again, this implies to me that the cosine of 600 is about the same as the cosine of 60, just positive or negative. I cannot be sure until I check which quadrant I am in. Since we are in the third quadrant and cosine is negative there, that means that the cosine of 600 degrees is equal to negative 1/2. And now for a radiance example, we have cosine of 5 pi over 6. This angle lies in the second quadrant, which means that the rules that I'm going to use to find a reference angle is going to be pi minus my angle. And when I do this, I'm going to have pi minus 5 pi over 6 equal to pi over 6. This once again implies to me that the cosine of 5 pi over 6 is about the same as the cosine of pi over 6, maybe with just a different sign. So here we are going to have the square root of 3 over 2. Since we are in the second quadrant, this means that the cosine is negative. So, cosine of 5 pi over 6 is equal to negative square root of 3 over 2. And now for our last example, sine of negative 2 pi over 3. This angle once again does not lie within the range of 0 to 2 pi, so what I have to do is find a coterminal angle that does. So I'm going to take my angle and add 2 pi to it, and that is going to give me 4 pi over 3. This angle lies in the third quadrant. So the rules that I'm going to use to find the reference angle is my angle minus pi. So I will take my 4 pi over 3, I will subtract pi from that, and that is going to give me a reference angle of pi over 3. So, sine of negative 2 pi over 3 is about the same as the sine of pi over 3 is equal to about root 3 over 2 or negative root 3 over 2. Which one? We'll look at the quadrant again, and since we are in the third quadrant and sine is negative there, that means that the sine of negative 2 pi over 3 is equal to the negative square root of 3 over 2. So, as a quick summary, we have to find a reference angle, evaluate that, and then use the position of the angles that we were given to determine whether or not our answer should be positive or negative. Sometimes before we can find the reference angle, we have to find a coterminal angle because our angle started outside of the realm of 0 to 360 or 0 to 2 pi. This skill is going to be incredibly valuable to you, especially if you plan on taking an exam that does not let you use a calculator on different trig problems. Keep in mind that most of the times, the further you go along in mathematics, the more you are going to be using radians, and the less you are going to be using degrees. So, these skills are going to be valuable. I highly recommend practicing them. Watch this as many times as you need, take good notes, and good luck to you. Auf Wiedersehen!